From Washington, this is VOA News. NATO's new leader brings a message of reassurance to Afghanistan. And Nigeria releases dozens of detainees who had been suspected of having militant connections. I'm Michael Lipin reporting from Washington. The new head of the NATO military alliance has made his first visit to the Afghan capital, Kabul, since taking office earlier this year. Speaking Thursday, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg told Afghans that NATO will continue supporting their country after it withdraws foreign combat troops at the end of this year. Stoltenberg said the end of the combat mission means starting a new chapter in which Afghanistan's future will be in the hands of the Afghan people.
Much has been sacrificed over many years to give Afghanistan a chance to succeed. We cannot and we will not allow these gains to be lost. I am here to reaffirm NATO's commitment to our common efforts for peace and security.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, who met with Stoltenberg, said he looks forward to working with the Western alliance in the future. U.S.-led NATO forces plan to leave a residual force of 12,000 personnel in Afghanistan to provide training and backup for Afghan troops who are continuing to fight a Taliban militant insurgency. Well, the Nigerian army has released 42 suspected members of Boko Haram after clearing them of involvement in the militant group's activities. The 42 men, who include 3 foreign nationals from Chad, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso, had been arrested during military raids over the past 3 years. Nigerian army officials turned them over to Borno State Governor Kashim Shettima on Tuesday at the state capital. You're listening to VOA News. The Pentagon says U.S. airstrikes have hit Islamic State militants in Syria who are plotting to attack the United States or Europe. U.S. Central Command says 5 Khorasan group targets were struck Wednesday night near Sarmada, close to the Turkish border. Coalition jets struck terrorists and destroyed vehicles, buildings, and bomb-making facilities. A Pentagon official who did not want to be named says one of the targets was a French-born convert to Islam and a suspected al-Qaeda bomb maker, David Drudgen. No one was able to confirm if Drudgen or any other suspects were killed. The Pentagon says it took decisive action to protect U.S. interests and remove the terrorists' capability to act. Human rights group Amnesty International says UN peacekeepers in the Central African Republic must take bold action to protect civilians from armed fighters. The group says sectarian violence in the African country is escalating. VOA's Joe DiCapua reports.
Amnesty's Steve Coburn says despite UN peacekeepers being deployed in September, the killings and displacement of civilians are on the rise.
Over the last month, we've seen the situation deteriorate somewhat in Central African Republic.
Coburn is Amnesty International's Deputy Regional Director for West and Central Africa.
During our recent mission to CER, we uncovered a very significant upsurge in violence also in the central area of the country around the town of Bambari and Dekoa, where there's a really quite a volatile mix of increasingly heavily armed groups.
CAR has a transitional government that Amnesty International says should play a leading role in ending the violence. But it adds that a lot more international support is needed to do so, including financing, logistics, and security. Joe DiCapua, VOA News, Washington.
The International Criminal Court has announced that it will not prosecute Israel for a 2010 raid on a Turkish flotilla bound for the Gaza Strip. 9 Turkish pro-Palestinian activists who were trying to break an Israeli blockade of Gaza were killed by Israeli commandos in that raid. ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said there is a reasonable basis to believe that war crimes were committed by Israel. But he also said the alleged crimes were not of sufficient gravity to justify further action by the ICC. Israel's foreign ministry said it took a positive note of that decision. But it said Israel considers the case to be politically motivated and legally unfounded, and regrets what it called the waste of the International Criminal Court's time and resources. I'm Michael Lipin, reporting from Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.